Hi everyone. In this video, I will show Python's basic features on how to get and process user input from the console. You will see how to convert a string into an int or float, split a string into a list of words, and format a program's output using fstring, which is available in Python 3.6 and above. In my demo, I'm using the PyCharm IDE, but you can try the example using any IDE as long as you use Python 3.6 or above. Let's create a simple program that asks the user to enter two integer values. After getting the numbers, we want to calculate the sum of these numbers and print the result. When we run the program, I enter 3 and 5 and expect to see 8 as the output. However, the program displays 35 instead of 8. Is there something wrong with this simple code? Do you know the reason for this unexpected output? Every object in Python has a type. Python comes with some built-in data types, including Boolean, string, integer, and float. You may have also seen and used other types, such as list, set, and dictionary. The input function, which we use to get user input from the console, returns a string. We can check by calling the type function and displaying its return value. As you can see, although the user types 3 and 5, what the input function returns is a string object, not a number. So when we try to compute the total, num1 plus num2 actually concatenates the strings rather than adding the numbers. How do we fix this problem? Well, if we want to add two numbers, we must convert the user input into an int or float by giving the user input to the appropriate function. In this example, I'm converting the user input into an integer as soon as they enter their response. Now, total produced the expected result. However, the program will fail if the user's response cannot be converted into an integer. To improve the robustness of our program, we need to use a different approach. Before we try to convert user input into an integer, we should check if it's possible to perform the conversion. For positive integers, we can use the isDigit method to test if a string contains only digits. In this way, if the user enters invalid numbers, the program can display an appropriate error message rather than getting crashed. When you write the program, it's helpful to display a meaningful message to the user. Rather than merely printing the total, let's add some information to the output. Here we pass all the strings we want to display as arguments to the print function, which converts them into strings separated by a space. There is a simpler way to format output, using what is called fstrings. Fstrings are strings that start with F. Using fstring to format output is straightforward. We can put the message to display as an fstring and put its variable name inside curly brackets or placeholders. When this fstring is printed, the variable values will be displayed in the correct places. Let's see another example of how to parse a string from user input. In this scenario, we ask the user to enter the cost of each item bought separated by spaces. The input function returns these items as a single string. To compute the total, we need to extract individual items. A string has the split method that returns a list of words or tokens. If the separator is not specified, the method uses whitespace as a separator. Notice that each cost is still of a string type. We need to convert each cost into a float to calculate the total cost of this transaction. We start by declaring an empty list called cost and constructing a for loop to process each item. For each item, we convert its type into a float and add it to the list cost. Now the list contains float objects that we can process further. Creating a sequence based on another series is a common task in programming. It is possible to make the same list using a comprehension syntax. Since we are creating a list, the syntax is called list comprehension. A list comprehension allows us to write an expression for every value in an iterable object based on a specific condition. In this example, the list comprehension converts each token in the list returned by the split method into a float. We don't have any conditions as we assume that every token represents an item's cost. As long as the statement is simple, using a comprehension syntax can result in more concise code. We no longer need the for loop to complete this task. After we get a list of float values, calculating the total cost, the GST, and the grand total is straightforward. We can use the Python's built-in function sum to calculate the total cost, add a 5% GST, and compute the grand total. Following the earlier examples, we use fstring to format the output. If you want to display the numbers with 2 decimal places, you can add a format spec in the string. In this case, we set the precision to 2 and display the number as a fixed point number. In summary, this video illustrates how to get and process user input from the console. It demonstrates how to parse user input, split a string into a list of words, and convert strings into numbers. It shows how to use a list comprehension to create a list based on another series of values and format output using fstring. Please try this example using your favorite Python IDE and let me know if you have any questions. Remember that learning by doing is a very effective way to learn programming and problem solving.